Okay, now we go to the next behavior change theory, which is the Transtheoretical Model. This is a unique, and it also includes the stages of change. This is a unique uh, behavior change theory developed by James Prochaska. And the big difference with this, as you can see from this slide, it has a lot of applications, health and mental health behaviors. This is a unique theory for two reasons. One, it has these stages of change, and kind of related to that, it has a temporal element. So this is the diagram of this model, and at the bottom you see the stages of change, and that is kind of where that time element comes in, where people will move along these stages, beginning with pre-contemplation, moving across through contemplation and preparation, and then moving to action and maintenance. You see self-efficacy on the top right. This model has what we call decisional balance, pros and cons related to different decisions related to behavior change. And so let's dive in, shall we? So this model, as we said, has these stages of change. So if you think about an individual who, once again, we'll use the examples, who is trying to quit smoking or trying to start exercising, they will often move through these stages. And very important to indicate that a lot of people will talk about it's a continuum, and people will move from one stage to another and then fall back to a stage they were previously in. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. So the basic constructs of Transtheoretical Model include these stages of change, decisional balance, or the pros and cons, self-efficacy, and then how people move through those stages and how that change looks. So just real briefly, these stages of change, pre-contemplation, we'll use the example of exercising. It's in the pre-contemplation stage, it's not even on the individual's radar. They're not thinking about exercising, and so that's why they're not even contemplating it yet. Then in the contemplation stage, now they at least are thinking about it. They have some intention to change, but there are no plans in the next, no specific plans. And this is a stage where they are contemplating or thinking about beginning exercise, and there's a lot of ambivalence. They're very aware of the pros and cons, but really are not doing anything about it. And then we have the preparation phase. So now this is the person who now is taking action, or they're intending to take action in the next 30 days, but they have taken some behavioral steps in that direction. Then we get to action. Going back to preparation, maybe they have purchased some running shoes or made a phone call to a gym to look into a membership. They've taken some action. They haven't started exercising, but starting to move that direction. Then we get to the action stage, and in this stage, the individual is engaged, making changes. They're starting to exercise. Maybe they've gone to the gym, and so action is happening. Once we get to maintenance and termination, the assumption is that in many ways the behavior change has happened, and they are now in the maintenance stage trying to figure out how this integrates into their daily life. So maybe they've made some new friends or reacquainted with some people with whom they exercise. They go to the gym with somebody, or they go running with somebody. This is often the time when people are struggling with, can I make this permanent? Am I really going to be a runner, be an exerciser? Is this going to be long-term? And so in the action and maintenance phase, this is where people may slip back to the previous slide and go back to preparation. Maybe they started running for a month or two, but now they got an injury, or they quit for a short time, whatever it might be. Once they get to the final stage, termination, they're no longer even tempted to not exercise. They have reached full self-efficacy. They feel confident in overcoming the barriers. In fact, often they don't really perceive the barriers anymore. They are now an exerciser or a runner, whatever it may be. So this last stage, this last bullet point under termination talks about addictive behavior. So if somebody is trying to quit smoking or quit involvement with drugs, this is a very important stage because now they are no longer tempted to go back to some of those behaviors. So those are the stages of change. And then we get to the decisional balance, which is really simply the individual weighing the benefits versus the cost of the behavior change. So that happens really through all of the stages. I guess maybe not pre-contemplation because they haven't even been really thinking about it yet. But an important part of this model is kind of this pro and con decision making that goes back and forth. And interestingly, this always gets difficult to explain, this third bullet point, but to move, research has shown that to move from pre-contemplation to action, you need to have more of an increase in the pros or the benefits, or a smaller degree of decrease in the cons of changing to take that action. So kind of interesting that you need to have more benefits that are obvious, or a decrease in the negatives, only half of a decrease in the negatives to progress to actually move to action stage. So that last bullet point maybe kind of explains that the benefits must increase twice as much as the cons to, I'm sure there's a meaningful explanation there, but that's kind of what 12 studies, kind of like that's what a meta-analysis showed relating to these factors. So then we have self-efficacy. Bandura and a social cognitive theory kind of created a lot of the idea of self-efficacy, and so that's pulled into this theory as well. The processes of change, there are cognitive and behavioral processes. So if you are assigned this theory, you definitely want to dive a little bit deeper into these different processes. So some of the assumptions of this theory, they say there's not one theory that can explain all of behavior change, but that it's a process unfolding over time. And as we said, people will often move back and forth through these stages. Interestingly, bullet point number 4 here, the majority of the at-risk population are not in the action phase. And so, a lot of times it's kind of the idea that the people who need a certain lesson the most are the ones who are not in the audience. And so a lot of intervention programs are focusing on action, and yet most of the people who really are quote unquote at risk are not in that action phase. And so, a let's start running campaign, it's not even going to affect the people who are in pre-contemplation phase. So there are some interventions that can be utilized for an individual who's in the various stages. So this should be quite obvious and intuitive. For somebody who's in the pre-contemplation phase, they need information so that it can get on their radar, and they need to understand the benefits of exercise or the benefits of quitting smoking. And then once somebody is in contemplation stage, now we need to start talking about setting goals and time frames. Preparation stage, we're developing a plan, we're getting other people involved, people that can support and help. Short-term, long-term goals. And as you may have heard with many different types of these programs, where an individual will set rewards for themselves, or maybe the gym they go to will offer incentives, whatever it might be, but sometimes the rewards can be very helpful in that preparation phase. And then the action phase, you're trying to adjust to this new lifestyle, be able to deal with unexpected reactions that occur. Maintenance phase, you're focusing on the behavior, working through relapse. Then maybe you start getting into putting yourself in the role of helping other people to start exercise. And so that strengthens the individual's ability to keep exercising. And then termination, you're no longer dealing with behavior change. Now you kind of have a new lifestyle, and so you're trying to work and develop and enhance that. So this is an example of a tool that could be used, that could be given to a client to understand where they are. So as you read through these, it'll be pretty obvious which, by answering these, which stage that would put the client in. But if they're saying, I'm not exercising, don't even plan to begin exercising in the next 6 months, that would be pre-contemplation. The next one, I presently do not exercise, but I've been thinking about starting. That would be contemplation, and so forth. And another way to kind of get a handle on an individual's self-efficacy, this kind of gives them the ability to identify some of the barriers. I don't want to exercise when I'm tired or in a bad mood or when I'm on vacation, and kind of gets the relative confidence level. And so if you're trying to help somebody, will give you some idea of kind of where they are in terms of self-efficacy. So more research is needed. This theory has been used in a lot of different behaviors, but as you will see, there's been research done to try and indicate what stage somebody is in, and if they're in a given stage, what are the key maybe inputs that can help them to move to the next stage. So this is, again, kind of a reiteration of what we've said before. Most programs are geared for people who are already in the preparation or action stages. So a lot of people who really have a need are kind of missed by a lot of health promotion programs. Again, only 20% are in the action stage. Most are either in pre-contemplation or contemplation stage. So interesting to think about maybe where some of our patients may be. And then there's a series of research studies here. This one dealing with physical activity in college women, bicycle helmet use. These are different kinds of behaviors that might be correlated. And so smoking and fruit and vegetable consumption. And finally, we have another study dealing with obesity and activity. So again, if this is the theory assigned to you, you want to look at these and other studies to better understand how they are applied.